you a student pursuing occupational therapy and still confused about your master's, your MOT, or you just want to know about the scopes of OT? Then this video is just for you. I'm Smriti Sikta Mishra, an Indian occupational therapy student, and this video is going to be really special. So make sure you watch the video till the end, and please, if you find it helpful, then please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more such informative content related to occupational therapy. And there are time lapse in the description, so check it out. It will be helpful. Thank you.
Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel, and I have someone really special and I'm so thankful to her because I just sent her a text message and she was so kind to reward back with a yes. So please welcome Shari ma'am, who is pursuing her master's. She is in her final month in neurology from ISIC, and we share our same college in bachelor's, which is like a X factor. Well, moving on. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm really grateful to be a part of this.
Thank you.
And I'm really happy to see someone from my page doing this.
I'm glad. I was a bit nervous actually. Like I've never met you or I've never known you in person, so it was a bit scary at the same time. But then I thought,
Yeah,
okay,
I understand.
yeah,
I understand. It's fine.
okay, okay. Let's start. Personally, I believe that every OT is such a diverse field. We all, as professionals, have a very different aspect and a very different viewpoint to describe OT. We have. I just believe that we have a self definition of OT. So, what is OT for you?
Yes. OT for me is many things, OT is for me an amalgamation of a lot of things, like we are not only focusing on the physical aspect or the mental aspect or the cognitive aspect or the environmental aspect. So, it is, I would define it as an amalgamation of all the rightful therapies that help you become the best you, the best version of yourselves. Because what we know so far is that OTs can do a lot more even for the general population. Like you don't have to be a disabled to get to get through OT. So it is everything. It is everything in one therapy, I would say, in concise way.
Okay. So, how is what is specific in OT in especially in neurology? Let's just define it and then we will move on.
Okay, so like you want to ask about role of OT in neuro?
Yeah, something like that. If you want to define, what you do. Yeah, exactly. Role of OT. We can in a concise way, and then we will also have a description in the later part.
Okay, so neurological conditions are really vast, and they can go from like easily recoverable to not at all recoverable. So an OT can go from all of these phases. Like OT can help in all of these phases. So occupational therapy in neuro, what I would define is it helps you become no matter your functional goal or your functional limitations at that point, and OT will try his or her best to make it easier for you to go by your life. So that is how I would describe the role of OT in a very
Concise.
basic way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, what was your story like? Why did you choose neurology?
It is actually, it also comes
Behind it.
from IPH.
Okay.
Yes, it also comes from IPH because in IPH what we used to have is that we have a clinical posting starting from third year. Then they are all like basic posting. You go to orthopedic departments basically, and in fourth year, you get your neurological postings. So I had my first neuro posting in fourth year. My first posting in fourth year was a neuro posting actually. So it was in GV Pant Hospital, and I had a really good time there. I learned a lot because the faculty there is amazing. The faculty in IPH also is amazing when it comes to neuro and pediatrics. So I learned a lot from GV Pant Hospital actually. What was my motivation there was that I, uh, you know, uh, saw that an OT can change your life like completely in the case of neuro, because medicines and surgery even do not play as big a role as a rehabilitation professional. So like for example, let's take spinal cord injury. you know uh, you would get, like, if someone gets injured and sustains a spinal cord injury, so surgery, yes, definitely it may or may not be important depending on the condition, but rehabilitation before the surgery, after the surgery is very important and goes throughout your life. Like, you have to have rehabilitation throughout your life. And rehabilitation is not always about exercises when it comes to occupational therapy. It is not about moving your hands and limbs and doing passive ROM, active ROM. It is not about that. You also learn how to teach a paraplegic patient to, don a shirt, or, don a pants, or doff the shirt using his, limited function capabilities. So, yes, OT, like, this motivated me a lot to enter in neuro and to learn more about this, because I think we can benefit from it. We can also learn from it as therapists, because it enhances our skills also. So, and it is very challenging. Neuro is very challenging.
Yeah.
So it's like a fun game. You do more challenging things, you learn more.
Yeah.
So that's how I chose neurology.
Okay. So I know that the pandemic struck when you were in your masters, but still, I would say, I would just ask that if you compare neurology and other streams that we have for masters in OT, what is so special in neurology? If you just say, uh, you can talk about the positives, negatives, because I feel that as students, when we like you liked neurology when you were in your posting, so it was a bit, you were clear in your mind that okay, maybe you want to get neurology, but there are some students who are not that clear and they just contemplate about the positives, negatives. So please throw some light on the different uh, master streams that we have in OT and neurology.
I get it completely why students are confused. I mean, when I was a student, I was also very confused, like what to do after this and where to go, how to consult someone, because I didn't know anything about OT before entering IPH. So that was my guide to IPH. Oh, sorry, OT.
Okay.
IPH was my guide to OT. So I know everything about OT from IPH. So now, what is different in neuro that is not in other fields? I would say there are a lot of similars and a lot of dissimilars. Similarity would be that maybe, in other conditions also you have to make the person independent. Your goal has to be to make the person independent, using your best capabilities. But what is the dissimilarity here is that in certain cases, like in orthopedics, in a case of fracture, the person will recover in the future. He will regain his original capabilities. But in the case of a stroke, a severe stroke, he may or may not regain his capabilities that he had before his stroke. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to make your plans according to that. Therapy in neuro is very long lasting, and you have to sustain for a longer period of time, and sometimes it goes like throughout your life. So, and there's sometimes no recovery, so you have to think about how to make this thing possible. Like, this is an OT's role. For example, there's like a stroke case who doesn't have fine hand functions in his hand, and it has been like 6-7 years since his stroke occurred. So, and he doesn't want his fine motor capabilities. He just wants to write again. He just wants to sign his name again. So that is where OT comes up. You have to adapt to that patient. You have to grade that activity for that patient. So if I compare it to something like what I can say, fracture, back pain, with certain medications, with certain surgeries, and with certain rehab, these symptoms do get better. But in case of neuro, it may or may not get better. So you have to keep a balance. You have to know where to start your restorative program and where to stop your therapeutic management. So
that,
yeah.
Just throw some lights on what the master course is all about in neurology, and what all you get to study, and the research work and everything.
Okay, so it differs from place to place,
Okay.
So what we have in, like, currently in our masters, we have 4 subjects in the first year and 4 subjects in the second year. So we study about other things also. Like in first year, you study about physical dysfunction, you study about other conditions also other than neurology. So, and you also study about mental health. Like there's a subject OT mental health in first year. Then there is research methodology, which you will study in fourth year as well, when you will go in fourth year, and you also study in first year. So other than that, you have OT in rehabilitation, which is learning more about assistive technology and how to design technologies and wheelchair programs and wheelchair training. So in neuro, like in my first year when there was no pandemic, so I learned a lot of things. Like in first year, I learned basic wheelchair training program that is given to spinal cord injury patients. It is not easy, to like ride a wheelchair. So even like being any enabled person, you feel that it is quite hard to, go by roads, go by hurdles. So you learn that. And in first year, before the pandemic had hit, this whole situation was quite hectic. Like we had our postings every day, and even on Saturdays. So other than that, we had our classes every day, and we now have to think about research also, because in our bachelor's we didn't have anything like making a research project or something. So we didn't know how to start it. We didn't know where to begin, and we didn't know how to go by it. So definitely I would say it is quite hard, it is stressful, but you learn a lot more. Like here in ISIC, we get to handle patients quite independently after a point. Like initially you are given a little support, but after that you handle on your own, and that gives you a lot of confidence in handling cases. So you realize that it is not always about knowledge, it is more about your handling. It is more about how you talk to the patient, how you judge the patient, how you make a plan for that patient. So yeah, I learned that, and I also learned how to manage stress. I also learned how to manage a lot of things at the same time. And I also learned that after you leave your bachelor's, the college life is not the same. So there are a lot of things. Also positives would be that you would also learn, like in bachelor's I had a very rigid mindset that in this condition I have to give this exercise, and in that, and I can't give this exercise because of this limitation. But after you enter your master's, you realize that things are not as straightforward. Like you can give those exercises with a certain precaution, with a certain gradation, and like you can do a lot of things just by learning research. So yeah, that is also what I learned. Also positives would be that I learned how to do research. Definitely, I don't know if I had learned it completely, but I have. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things. Life like quite changes after your masters. So
Yeah. So would you actually advise that students should actually start a bit of research in their undergrad level? I think a
Yes,
lot of students
definitely.
are doing these days.
Yes, yes, definitely. Actually, the earlier you start, the better, you know, because research is fun.
Hmm.
If it is not bound by deadlines and if
Yeah.
it is not bound by, marks and all of that, if you
Mhm.
do it just for the sake of learning, it is very fun to do,
Yeah.
because you would realize that, okay, this, has an effect on this variable. And you would expect normally that if a person has certain limitation, that it will affect his ADLs, but it is not always the case in your research. So it is on you to gather the data and all of it. So definitely it is a fun way to learn more about your profession. So I think, yes, research, I mean, you should not wait for masters to start your research. You can do it before it, just learn how to do it, because it
Hmm.
can get frustrating at times. But if you have the right mentor, if you know how to do it right, then you must do it. I believe it is also good for the profession, it is also good for you. So yeah.
Coming to what do you think students like? I just after talking listening to you, I just feel that patience and time management and an attitude of relearning always. This is something which I would say that should be a must in students who really want to pursue neurology. What will be your
Yes.
4 or 5 criteria that you just feel that this should be, students should inculcate within them to become a better neuro?
First of all, you must have patience.
Yeah.
You must have a lot of patience. Second, you must be willing to go through all of these challenges. You must know that you can't always be successful. Your therapy can go wrong. Your therapy can not benefit sometimes. Uh, one rule doesn't work for everybody.
Hmm.
I mean, I can learn from books. Okay, I can learn roots, I can learn NDT, I can learn SI. I have heard in books that it works for stroke, it works for SCI, but sometimes it doesn't. And you have to accept that. So, also you have to have a strong will. Your willpower has to be strong. And your knowledge base, behind your therapeutic techniques has to be strong. Like, you have to know why you are doing this. If you're doing this blindly, okay, I can do this, everything has certain results, and it will prove beneficial. So that is not, anybody can do this. Then to even a bachelor's can do this, then there's no use of doing masters. So you have
Yeah.
to have that knowledge base, and you have to strive. Like, you must know how to strive to stand out,
Hmm.
stand out of the crowd. Because honestly speaking, it is not OT versus OT, it is also PT versus OT when you are in
Yeah.
the real world.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of people, there's also quacks, a
Hmm.
lot of quacks doing your work. So you have to stand out. You have to know that, okay, certain things work for them, certain things don't. And yeah, mental strength is something you have to go through
Okay.
this.
Coming to the most important part, role of OT in neurology. What are the typical cases that you have? And as you said, that the therapy procedures can be really, really long. So how do you actually manage that and that frustration? Because being a therapist, I just feel that you always feel that, okay, my patient or my client should, reach that goal. But you're seeing that it
Mhm.
is not happening. So how to manage all of that?
I will start with role of OT in neuro.
Yeah.
First of all, the cases that we see are numerous. Like, there will be certain cases you haven't even heard of.
Mhm.
So there will be certain cases that have symptoms but have no real pathology behind it. So you
Okay.
don't know what part of the brain is affected, what part of body is affected, or
Mhm.
what is really going wrong.
Mhm.
But they have certain symptoms, and you have to provide the therapy.
Okay.
So it can go from, like I would talk about the two most common cases that we see in neuro, that is stroke and SCI. SCI also, in, like, if you're working in setups like ISIC, so you will get to see SCI. Otherwise, you will see CP.
Hmm.
CP can be in neuro and CP can be in pediatrics. So the role can be for a stroke. Like, if a stroke patient comes up to me and I know everything about the assessment, like I know BRS stages, I know the stages of NDT, and I can do all of that, but I don't have time for it.
Hmm.
You know, that patient wants the therapy. The patient doesn't want to be assessed. The patient doesn't want you to count his limitations more and more.
Yeah.
So you have to think of something, like just by looking at the patient. If the patient in a private setup, you know, in a government setup, it is still easier because you have to like assess. You can assess the patient, and the patient is usually on a, you know, regular visit, but he's not taking sessions from you. He's not coming to you every day. But in private, certain private setups, certain private hospitals, they are coming to you every day, and they have already had their assessment done. So they don't want any more assessments. They only want the therapy. So what you can do at that point is that just by looking at the patient, you know, if the patient is flaccid, the patient can't move his hand, you know, just by looking at that, you know that, okay, I can start with certain bed mobility techniques, you know, bed mobility, that is rolling or supine to side lying or supine to sitting. You will learn pattern further
Yeah,
years,
yeah,
and you keep that learning. You know, you can't just learn one thing and
yeah.
just go on applying the patient, because it is very difficult to do bed mobility. And you know, especially if the patient is very heavy, so you have to have like 2 to 3 attendants. So you have to take care of that. And also like just by knowing the stage, I can do, and even if you can do like bed mobility in anything,
Mhm,
you have to do bed mobility in SCI also.
mhm.
So just by looking at the patient, just by looking at the level of the patient. So if the patient is a hemi, you have to take care that you don't have to, you know, stretch that shoulder that is of the affected side. And you have to take care that, you know, the patient can be aphasic. The patient might not be able to understand your commands. You have to be very simple. You have to be very basic. You have to like use your gestures sometimes, and can get frustrating. You know, it can. So because with aphasia, you know, you also can't do a lot of things in therapy, because certain therapies demand you to have a comprehension level. So you can't do those therapies because the patient doesn't have that comprehension level. So definitely it has to be great for every patient. You know, rule of 40 and everything has to be great for every patient. So uh, definitely, I mean, there's no set guidelines. I won't say that, okay, I can do this, I can, you know, say this to the patient and he can do this and he will recover. No.
Yeah.
Also, if the patient is like flaccid, or the patient has a good trunk control, sometimes the patients are flaccid and they have good trunk control. You know, we go by the books too much. Like books say that, okay, if a patient is flaccid, he doesn't have trunk control, but sometimes patient can get stagnant at one stage. You know, they don't have any control over their affected limb, of the upper limb and of the lower limb, but they have good trunk control, so they can do a lot of things. Even in that,
Okay.
they can dress themselves, they can undress themselves, they can eat with their other hand. Or, you know, even if the patient has limited capabilities in their affected limb, then they can uh, do all of those things with that affected hand, but with certain gradations, certain assistive technology techniques, certain, you know, certain adaptations at their home. So yeah, the role is endless. I would say there's no set guideline that, okay, I will do this, I can do PNF, I can do NDT. I mean, when we were in bachelor's, you know, we always thought that this whole NDT, PNF, SI, you know, we have to learn that, like this is a really good approach and we should learn that. But when you enter masters, you know, you realize that like you have been doing this all along. Like you have been doing NDT, you have been doing SI, you have been doing MRP, like motor learning approach, but you just didn't know that you were doing this. And they have been proven good, but they have also been proven wrong in certain conditions. Like NDT, in certain studies, NDT hasn't been proven to be as effective in controlling spasticity as it was thought out to be. So we have to be adept at the recent developments in neuro rehab. Neuro rehab keeps developing. You know, that is also one good thing, that neuro rehab keeps developing. There's no end. Like one day you will have NDT, then next day you will have, you know, motor learning approach or task oriented training, and there is some other research also. There's some other training or technique also in these therapies, like some other technique would come up under NDT.
Hmm.
So these things keep evolving. So you have to learn, you have to learn and you have to apply, because once you apply, it gets in your mind, it gets etched in your mind for like forever,
Hmm.
if you apply it and you see the results for yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I believe that one must learn to have, you know, the role of OT in neuro.
Okay. And coming to the second part, how do you manage this frustration of not getting the results, not getting the thoughtful results, and all of those? Because especially in neurology, OT, the therapy interventions are so long. As you said, it can go for lifetime. It can go for years and years.
Yes.
So how do you manage that?
Uh, you know, there are a lot of things actually, because like I said, OT's role doesn't end with therapy. Like if I say that the person has restored his abilities to the max, that doesn't mean that that is the end of the occupation therapy program.
Hmm.
After that also, if the patient has no control to regain, even after that, an OT can play a lot more role. If a patient can't walk, with the help of a walker, with the help of a cane, an OT can teach him, can train him how to use it, how to use those mobility devices. Also, he would make sure that your house is accessible enough for you to get by your house, to go to your washroom independently, to go to your kitchen, so that you are not bedridden for no good reason. So definitely, I mean, therapy, there are no results, yes, but you have to have therapy all your life to maintain your levels, the levels that you have regained previously.
Okay.
So there's no end to therapy in
Hmm.
neuro. You keep on doing it, and even in SCI, like say a complete SCI, it is thought that complete SCI do not have a lot of recovery, and I have seen that also. But they have to have therapy like throughout their life, otherwise their levels go below their original level. They can develop tightness, they can develop contractures, which is even more debilitating than the real disease itself. So yes, OT plays like a role in every part. And also there is your mental health.
Yeah.
After you have regained your maximum capability, and if the surgeon or the doctor or your therapist has told you that there's no recovery from now onwards, so how to cope with that? An occupation therapist helps in that also. So there's no end to therapy, just I think there's no need to get frustrated in that.
Okay.
Definitely the patient will get frustrated, and in that case you have to keep your calm. You have to make that patient understand that this is not the end of the road, that you can still achieve a lot more with your present condition. So definitely, I mean, I think this will motivate a lot of therapists that there's no end to your role. You have an endless role.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that is a reason to be motivated and not get frustrated.
PT and the role of PT and OT, is there something overlaps in cases of neuro or ortho? So
Definitely.
yeah, and there is like so much abundance of PT that I at times the OT gets neglected, or I don't know the real market, but I'm just guessing it out that it must be happening in the real world. So
Definitely it
what is the
is.
opportunities for neuro OT and the job market? How is it?
See, in the places where they hire PT and OT both, they have actually roles written for them. Like
Okay.
in certain places, even ISIC hospital, they have physiotherapists and occupation therapists on board.
Mm.
So occupation therapists work on their upper limb and trunk control and ADL activities and wheelchair training, whereas physiotherapists work on their gait training and lower limb recovery and chest PT. So there's a diverse room. There's room for both, I
Yeah.
believe,
Okay.
for OT and PT both. It depends on your knowledge. It depends on you as an individual. Definitely, it is a competitive market. I won't deny it. It is not a cakewalk. Definitely, you have to stand out, like I said earlier, because it is a competitive field. So definitely, if you have the knowledge, if you have the interest, if you want to learn more, there is room for you. You know, I won't say that you would get neglected just because you're an OT. Definitely, yes. If you're an OT, people think that you are already good at pediatrics. You know, that is one thing. And if you're a PT, people think you're already good at back pain and shoulder pain and low back pain. So there
Yeah.
is that stereotype always. So it is up to you how to fight that. Like you have to have that, in your mind that I want to go there. You have to make your mind. Like
Mm.
I have to be in neuro. I have to work in neuro. There are a lot of OTs working in neuro. If I say, compared to like 10 years ago, there are a lot more colleges offering MOT in neuro today than there were 10 years ago. There are a lot more people doing working in neuro rehabs now as compared to 10 years ago. So definitely the number is increasing. If you are good, you will be in demand always. So I believe that no matter PT or OT,
Okay.
it's just, it all comes down to how much you know and how much
Mm.
you can handle. So definitely. And also how much the college has taught you. So yeah.
Yeah. How do you look at the future of neuro OT? I think that a lot of private, especially in the private hospitals, there is they are stressing upon the rehab part. Uh, so how do you look upon to the future of neuro?
Um, I would like to believe that it is a bright future because, like I said, people are now entering more in neuro as compared to 10 years ago. I believe that 10 years from now, a lot of OTs will go in neuro because it is a good field, I believe, and OTs are increasing in number. There are a lot more OTs also
Mm.
than there were 10 years ago. There are a lot more colleges also offering MOT in neuro. So I would say that the future is bright. Uh, However, if you ask me about Delhi NCR, then yes, pediatrics has an upper hand, definitely. Uh, as an OT, you would always, at least once in your life, work in a pediatric setup after bachelor's or master's. So that is that. But if you choose to go down south or Mumbai or someplace, then there are a lot more OTs working in Europe. A lot of OTs. There aren't as many in Delhi NCR currently. There will be in future. But yes, the future is bright. Also considering the pandemic, the whole COVID-19 situation, the research suggests that COVID-19 has also caused a lot of neurological manifestations.
Yeah.
So also we have seen like cases of post COVID stroke
Mm.
or GBS is happening after COVID. So that demands, a therapist. That demands more and more therapists to be recruited in hospitals, in rehab, more and more investment in healthcare infrastructure. So I believe that definitely the future is bright. Definitely.
Okay. Just in the last part, any grad school mistake you just want to say, so that your juniors don't do that, or anything you want to say about to the aspiring neuro OT students, or anything you just want to listen to the OT community.
Uh, Take all your classes in bachelor's. Don't bunk your classes, okay? Don't bunk your clinical postings. Even if
Yeah.
you bunk your classes, don't bunk your clinical posting. They are very important. And always listen to your teachers. You're not going to get an environment as good as IPH again or in any bachelor's college because bachelor's is your base. You have to make a strong base to go forward in your life. So if you make that, that a strong base, you will have a lot more to do in your future. So what I made a lot of mistakes. I continue to make a lot of mistakes even in my masters. So maybe I would say not paying attention in the class, maybe or taking. I think the one mistake that I regret till now is that I took my bachelor's for granted. I always
Okay.
thought that okay, my college life is going to be amazing even after this, and if I would go for masters, the things would be same, but they are not the same. And I just never thought that it would end. You are in bachelor's, and then you go for fourth year, then you go for internship, and you just never think that it will ever end. You think that college is never ending,
Yeah.
and you take that for granted, because once you step out of that environment, you would know what you have lost. So be grateful. Be grateful that you are in this profession, and you are in a college that you are, not just IBH, but all the other colleges. I think every college has certain potential to offer.
Yeah.
So enjoy your bachelor's as much as you can. And I know this pandemic situation has ruined a lot of things, but I would still say that you have got time, like 2 to 3 years. So make the best out of it. Learn and make the best out of it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. We did it quite well. Okay. Anything
I'm
else you
happy
want?
to.
Anything else you want to say?
I would say that the road is hard. I mean, I'm not going to paint a picture that is very good. I'm going to be very real. The road is hard ahead, and but just try your best. Just try your best to be and what you do. Like, there will be many moments that you will rethink your decision of doing your masters, of being in this profession. There will be a lot of moments, and there are these moments in other professions also. No profession is perfect. So it is a rewarding profession if you are good enough, and even if you are, it is still very rewarding. So just keep a straight mind what you want to do in future, and don't worry. It will all, you would figure it out
Okay.
with the right time. So yeah.
Okay. So let's end this here with a good note.
Okay,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.